Razgovor, dakle, tajnik mehanizma Međunarodnih kaznenih sudova UN-a boravi po prvi puta u Hrvatskoj, gdje se sastaje s ministrom pravosuđa i predsjednikom Vrhovnog suda Đurom Sesom te predstavnicima nevladinih udruga o nasljeđu Haškog suda za bivšu Jugoslaviju kojeg je mehanizam UN-a naslijedio. Te o istrazi samoubojstva Slobodana Praljka, za koje je tajništvo nadležno, razgovarao je kolega Branimir Farkaš.
U Zagrebu razgovaram sa gospodinom Olufemijem Eliasom, tajnikom Međunarodnog mehanizma za kaznene sudove u Hagu, koji je zamijenio poznati Haški sud. Mr. Elias, welcome to Croatia. This is your first time here, I suppose.
Indeed it is. Thank you very much.
So, you were named by the General Secretary of UN last year to this position of the Secretary of the MICT. So, after almost a quarter of century of International Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, ICTY, do we have the final figure how much this court costed?
Oh, that's a difficult question. There are, the first budget of the ICTY, it varied a little bit over the years. At the height of its activity, I think it might have reached more than even up to 200 million. And some of the years at which was most busy, and at other years it was much less. So it's difficult to say. I think it costs some money. It's expensive.
But still, after this quarter of century, we have edging of a new conflict in Kosovo nowadays, which is really dangerous. And also, Milorad Dodik, the president of the Serbian part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Republika Srpska, is speaking against the Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state. So, like the political legacy is not very good, it seems now.
That's a difficult assessment for me to make. I know that certainly as far as the ICTY, or the International Criminal Tribunal for Former Yugoslavia, is concerned, its legacy is there. I know that it's up to 161 people altogether were indicted. There are copious amounts of records, of judgments, of facts that were established. I hope that in any future process, in any future discussion, any future decision as to how future matters might be addressed, that this will be of some benefit. I think that was the important thing that the tribunal was up to do. I think it's established many facts, dealt with many cases, and I think that's most of what you can expect from a judicial entity.
When do you expect the mandate of MICT to end?
Oh, that's a good question. The thing about the mechanism is that it has a number of different kinds of functions. Some of those functions are things that will last longer. Some of them will stop sooner. Some of the more high-profile ones are things like the trials that are going on right now. Now, those, for instance, those will be one of the first things to end. At the end of the day, when the mechanism was set up, it wasn't really intended to be dealing with trials. But we have quite a fair bit of judicial activity, not just in this branch, but also in the branch that we have in Rwanda.
Yes.
So we have those judicial activities going on. I think those will be the first to die down. But then we have things like preserving the archives of both tribunals. We have the protection of witnesses. We have the assistance to national jurisdictions. We have the enforcement of sentences, some of which are very long sentences because some are serious crimes. So those will probably last a little bit longer. But the judicial activity, from that point of view, and that's some of the more visible things that the mechanism does, I think in a few years, most of those should be over.
Judicial activity, ongoing cases against Mladic and Karadzic.
Yes.
But how is exclusion of judges, which is a recent development in the Mladic case, is going to affect this, prolong the case?
Yes. In the case of Mladic, I think the impact is not going to be significant. Why? Because the judgment, if you recall, was handed down at the very end of 2017. Right now, the cases are still in the pre-appeal stage. Just appeal briefs are being filed at the moment. So the appeals proceedings haven't really started yet. So it's not going to have too much impact on that. In the Karadzic case, I think it's I think a new judge was appointed. A new judge has to deal with the case that it was initially scheduled by the end of this year. That judgment would have been given. I don't think it will extend it too much by that. So I still think it will be a little bit later, but not significantly too much. That's my guess. Of course, it's a judicial matter. I can only speculate.
You can never know. But when we think about Mladic and we speak about Mladic, this is one of maybe the key figure in all the wars in the Balkans. And he was also responsible for the only genocide in Europe after the Second World War. So the danger here is he is very ill. He's not in a good health. So I think it should be very important to end this trial with some kind of conclusion. sentence, kind of.
I agree with you, and I can guarantee you that, I'm not in a position to speak for the judges, but I know that obviously, as you mentioned, this is as high as it gets in terms of the profile of the mechanism. And I know that every effort is being made on all our parts, certainly on my registry's part, to ensure that this is a case that, comes to a resolution that's important for the legacy of this work and contribute to matters in the region as well.
The secretary is in charge for the investigation in a case of suicide of Slobodana Praljka, which happened in the courtroom. What are the findings of the final report?
There are two processes altogether. First of all, we work in the Netherlands. We're guests of the Dutch government. They're our host country. Whenever anything happens on their country that might be a matter of potentially a criminal act, that's for them. That's within their jurisdiction. We don't have the right to undertake criminal investigations or anything like that. That process is going on right now in the Netherlands. You will see that the ICTY, because it was just before the mechanism took over those cases. Yes. At that time it was ICTY. They immediately instituted an internal administrative review to check to make sure that procedures and everything were followed properly and to see what can be improved. They published those findings, and if you look on our website, the findings are published there. Most importantly, they made sure it was conveyed to the families of Mr. Praljak.
Before it was published.
Before it was published. So that is there on the website, and what they found was that essentially there's always room for improvement anywhere, but none of the rules, which had been well scrutinized, we have input from international bodies to verify that those rules are consistent with international practice. Those were all followed. At the same time, there's always room for improvement, whatever you do, because the nature of the incident that happened was such that the item in question was very, very small, and it would have taken a particular kind of intrusive searches for which we had no basis.
What kind of bottle did he use?
I'm not sure what the kind of bottle is. I know it was a very small item. That's what I know.
If the poison was ready-made or he mixed the poison himself?
I don't know how we came across it. But as I said, there's information on that on the website, the bits of the report. I think.
But there was no wrongdoing or neglect of staff.
Nothing was found. Nothing was found. We're waiting for the outcome of the Dutch outcome, but I know that it's something we take very, very seriously. Our procedures are scrutinized by international bodies to make sure they comply with the best practice and international prison regulations. So that was not the problem.
There are now ongoing cases of the Serbian military and political leaders from the 90s. How is the cooperation with Belgrade, with the mechanism, to your knowledge? Are there any unfulfilled demands from their side?
As far as I am concerned in the registry, and that's what I can speak about authoritatively, we handle the judicial records. We are the custodian of records and information regarding the cases. We have excellent cooperation with authorities in many different countries where national proceedings are going on involving these different matters. We exchange information, testimony, information that can help cases that are going on in countries in the region. We have had no difficulties in that regard, and that is the one that is within the purview of my registry.
You are now in Croatia, the country that has been put on hold for the EU membership for more than 10 years because of the prosecutors' demand to extradite three Croatian generals, which were later tried, and then they were acquitted. There was no wrongdoing found on their account. So was that fair, that Croatia was put on hold for such a long years for something that in the end was found there was no judgment?
I think you'll understand that, the policy decisions of the EU are not matters that were within the response, but certainly not of the mechanism, even if it was at the time of the ICTY. So that's not really something I can comment on. I think, in terms of the fairness that you ask, as I said, I can't comment on that. But generally speaking, the fact that these were tried and acquitted, I think is of value in itself. That they were tried and acquitted, and all the facts were established in that regard. But in terms of whether it was fair at the time it was made, that's
because that puts us on hold for more than a decade in our development of our society and economy and everything. Still, what kind of meetings are you going to have here in Croatia, and what will you focus on?
Tomorrow, I hope to meet with the meetings that really focus on the work, particularly of the registry that we do. I will meet with the President of the Supreme Court of Croatia to discuss issues of judicial cooperation, as far as I mentioned, and cases going on in mutual cooperation with each other. And I'll also meet with the Minister of Justice, of course, again. There's a great deal of cooperation between both entities, and those are the kinds of issues I'm going to focus on.
Can Croatian judiciary get all the records from the former ICTY, now the mechanism, for the need of their own prosecutions here in Croatia?
I think that's the kind of cooperation we'll be discussing. Yes. That is exactly the kind of cooperation.
When the ICTY was established, it was above the local judiciary. But
right.
Now, when all the cases are over, now the Croatian judiciary is available to start some processes.
That, in general terms, that is precisely one of the aspects of the mandate of the mechanism, is to assist national jurisdictions to be able to proceed with their own cases and to make information available where.
Okay, so whatever they will ask in order to prosecute someone, they will get from your records.
Those are the things to discuss.
Okay.
As long as the information is within our... Because, there's a lot of information that is not under the registry as well. The prosecutor and those things. But yes, that is the idea, yes.
Thank you very much, and I wish you a pleasant stay here in Croatia and good conversations.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.